Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. We need to start meeting if we may. Unfortunately, the IT here is not working fully, but we have an hour, and if everyone can speak up, then hopefully the people online will hear us. Could somebody online confirm you can hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, thank you very much indeed. My name's Ros White, I'm the lead member for Economic Development, Planning and Assets. I chair this meeting and I welcome you together with the members of the subcommittee. And we have round the table this morning, Bill Evans, Dixie Dart, Sarah Wakefield, I think deputising for Liz Nation, and Richard Wilkins. Yep. Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed. Just to remind people that it's the elected members in the room who will be voting today. However, those online are very welcome to contribute, and please put up your hand in the normal way. If not, an officer will be monitoring the chat line as well. And in the room, indicate in the normal way. And also just to help people when you start speaking to announce who you are, that will matters. The meeting is being audio recorded, and finally, the agendas are now viewed electronically, and you can see them on the public website as well as those who have been indicated a published agenda pack. Right, apologies for absence, I understand there are none. Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting have been circulated. I've not received any amendments. Anyone? So could I have a proposer and a secretary? Thank you, Councillor Dart, Councillor Wilkins, and everyone's content. Show of hands. Thank you. Right, declarations of interest. In addition to the register of membership of town and parish councils. No, thank you. On to public question time, and my understanding there are no questions. Thank you. Right, on to item 5. We have the pleasure of making a local plan this morning, Puritan Neighbourhood Plan. And I would like to invite Nick Tate and Helen Murdoch to introduce.
It's me. So Nick, they're both on me.
Fair enough. So I invite Alison Lord-Trooper to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you rightly introduced, it's about making the Puritan Downington Double Neighbourhood Plan, which is now ready for adoption. They've been working on this since February 2017, so it's been a long journey to get to this point. The plan has been through the normal process of examination, independent examination, and then went to a local referendum on Thursday, the 4th of July. The outcome of the referendum was 81% voting in favour, the return absolutely 2% voting yes. Land. So the total number of votes cast was 1,079, and of those 874 voted yes. So overwhelmingly the vote for yes. And the position is that following the referendum with a 50% voting yes, then Somerset Council is required to formally make the plan part of our development plan within 8 weeks of the date of the referendum. So it's before you today to be made, and it will be part of the development plan for any applications coming forward in the neighbourhood plan area. And I'll have the same status as applications in the development plan.
Thank you. Any questions at all? I think this is a very welcome process where we formally make something. We don't have anyone from the parish council here today. My apologies for
Yeah, no, I was just going to say how pleased I was to see this come forward. It's especially important with gravity investments being in this parish, that it will be significantly impacted by the extra investments into this area. We have said absolutely it's crucial that the voices of the local parish are heard throughout this process, and I would very much welcome this and the very high turnout that went with it. I'm sure it was coincidental that there was a general election on the same day, and this underlines the massive enthusiasm for the local plan in Puriton. That being said, I was impressed by the parish council's engagement. Most of the residents, I think, did have an understanding of what the plan was around. There were a few that obviously hadn't heard about it, but I do think that we've seen a really good example of a parish council coming forward and making a plan with their residents that will be listened to as we go through a period of considerable change in this particular area, and I'm fully supportive of the proposal that we make the plan.
Great, thank you. Councillor Collins?
Thank you. Just on the island.
It's just read that.
Sorry, my apologies. Yes, I just wanted to say I'm very pleased to see this come to the plan stage. It's part of a bigger jigsaw. It's very, very useful to have another piece of the jigsaw there and up and running. I welcome the interest and the help that came from the parish, because it's hugely important. And we hope that we get a similar level to spot mentor and mention. I hope that we get a similar level of response for the other local plans that are coming forward. Really important to engage. So I'd like to thank all the officers publicly for the work they've done. And I hope that we are able to use this as an example on how the local plans should be made.
Thank you. I would agree, delighted to see another one. Councillor Wakeman?
Yes, I too am very pleased to see this coming forward. They are such a big local effort to get them through. There are so many stages to go through, and engaging with the local community and talking about what they need, and hopefully influencing local development through this neighbourhood plan is really important in an area where there is a lot of development and has been. I'm also pleased that it should mean that, I think this is a still area, they should get the 25%, which is really important for them as a community to use in the way they feel best for their community. And I think having that voice and having that opportunity to use those resources in the way that the community is really important. I was going to comment on the turnout. I hadn't realised it was going to the election. I'm going to say it's strangely similar to what you get in the turnout in the election. But it's very pleasing, nevertheless, that people actually bother to do that vote at the same time, because getting people out to vote is not an easy thing, as we know, particularly when there isn't another election going on at the same time. No, I'm very pleased to see this. I would encourage other parts of Somerset to do the same thing. It is a very long journey, as we know, but there are people who've done it, who are prepared to help you, and people who know how to do it who will help you. So it's my support.
Good, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, I think I would endorse all the comments about it's worthwhile. It takes a long time. There is support, but there is still a lot of people struggling, really struggling as communities to actually get through all the processes. But I would commend anyone who does put the effort in, because it will make a contribution. Right, could I have a proposer and a seconder for this, please? Councillor Wilkins and Councillor Waker, and thank you for that. Can I then also show of hands? Thank you, that's carried. Right, and our very best wishes can be put formally to minutes to the community for their neighbourhood plan and wish them well in the future. It is an achievement. Right, item 6, the Taunton Waterway Strategy and Guidance. I'll ask Jenny Clifford to introduce the report. We have heard and seen a bit of it before, but it is such a significant one that it's really worth just spending a few minutes considering it. Thank you, Jenny.
Good morning, Jenny Clifford, Taunton Garden Town Implementation Manager. I do have a presentation this morning, so if you bear with me a moment while I just share my screen and pull that up. Okay, thank you. I think the first thing to mention about this piece of work is that it's been grant funded by Taunton Garden Town capacity funding that we've received from NHCLG. One of the prime reasons for this piece of work is to lever in further grant funding in order to fund some of the projects and some of the initiatives that are recommended within the report. The primary aim of this is all about maximising the positive placemaking, environmental and community outcomes to be achieved from every investment in the waterways, their management and also waterside development. This is about a strategic plan. It's intended to also inform planning decision making for key sites, key brownfield sites adjacent to the waterways, but to also establish a management framework. It very much aligns with the vision for Taunton as a garden town, within which the waterways, the River Tone and the canal are recognised as being significant to the character, to the appearance, to Taunton itself. And in terms of the River Tone catchment, it's an extensive catchment, but this particular piece of work focuses very much on the central Taunton area of that catchment. And I'm just showing in the next slide a little bit more detail about the study area, going from the Silk Mills Park and Ride to the west to the M5 to the east. And as already mentioned, taking in not only the River Tone, but also the Bridgewater and Taunton Canal between those 2 points. So in terms of outputs, it builds on the vision for the garden town through the lens of the waterways. It sets up a series of potential outcomes from investment, which will be used to prioritise investments. There is planning guidance for brownfield sites. There are a series of projects which have been identified. Also it sets out a management and maintenance plan. It's been a collaborative piece of work, working with a series of water-based stakeholders. So first of all, in terms of these outcomes from investment, so this is about a means to prioritise every investment in the waterways. And identifies 4 things that you can see on the slide there. So looking at positive community benefits, the environment, placemaking, but also recognising that there are operational requirements as well, not least the importance of water conveyance and in particular flood mitigation, and that is very much recognised through the document. It also seeks to identify a series of character areas throughout that stretch of the River Tone and the canal, and these are looked at in some detail within the document. Their essential characteristics. They will then be utilised for development management purposes, looking at essential key aspects of character. And the piece of work also looks at potential opportunities. So, for example, it could be environmental enhancement, biodiversity and ecology enhancement. Equally, the sorts of opportunities identified include things like transport connectivity, so bike and cycling, but also opportunities around recreation, around access to water, use of the water, for example, for recreation purposes. So it produces for each of the character areas a detailed map mapping constraints, mapping opportunities. And the idea subsequently within the report is to distill this down into a series of projects. So the main aim of this document is about maximising the positive impacts of investments, stacking positive impacts, so that if we're looking to invest funds or apply for grant funding for an aspect of the waterways, trying to make sure that every penny counts, that there can be multiple benefits for the environment, for ecology, for movement, for the community. A series of strategic goals are identified. I'm not intending to go through those in any detail, but those strategic goals underpin a lot of the contents of the document. But as you can see there, they recognise aspects such as the cultural significance of the waterways to Taunton, the need for collaborative working, but also importantly the need for coordinated delivery between all of the different stakeholders that have a waterways aspect to their work. And again, just pointing out the first of those strategic goals around the conveyance of water to mitigate flood risk, knowing that that is such a significant issue for Taunton. I've mentioned projects and investments. Throughout the course of this piece of work, the initial 300 projects were sifted, particularly around deliverability, and they were very much shortlisted. And they were very much looking into a series of 3 aspects. So those projects are divided into strategic frameworks, which would be used to help levering further funding by justifying investment in particular projects to maximise benefits. A series of combined projects, achieving the widest range of long-lasting outcomes, and then finally a series of individual standalone projects. Some of those could offer opportunities for quick wins. So one of the recommendations coming through from this piece of work is the creation of a linear water park concept through the core of the centre of Taunton, very much focused around that waterways corridor, aligning very much with the Garden Town vision, building on the proposed character areas. We've already got a lot of open space, recreation, green assets, parks running through that waterways corridor, and it very much builds on that with this linear park concept. And this could have significant potential as a vision document to lever in further funding to assist the delivery of projects. Secondly, we have governance, the need to recognise the coordination and management of our waterways within governance arrangements. The report talks about whether to set up a new governance body or to make use of an existing one. So, for example, we already have a Taunton Garden Town advisory board. So there's an opportunity to utilise existing governance arrangements. One of the recommendations is also for a town tributaries framework, recognising the significance of the tributaries, but also opportunities, for example, projects around opening up the tributaries where they are perhaps culverted, environmental enhancements that would result in, for example. And then a series of other potential frameworks have been recommended around the community. Also connectivity in terms particularly of active travel, walking, cycling, but also a biodiversity framework in the event that the waterways opportunities are not addressed within the local nature recovery strategy. Further recommendations relate to auditing the public realm, identifying their features, shortfalls, determining the level of investment that might be needed, but also looking at a lighting framework as well. It is important at this point to recognise that these frameworks, these core pieces of work, are not currently funded. And so one aspect of this particular report is to identify possible funding sources that could be applied for in order to lever in external funding, but also investment into the area. A further additional recommendation actually goes beyond the study area. I've included it completeness, and this is looking at the River Tone catchment as a whole. So this goes beyond the scope of Taunton Barton Town in this particular piece of work, but our consultants have identified the need to look at the River Tone catchment as a whole, and I'm sure everyone will recognise that water conveyance within the catchment, it is a catchment point issue, and holding water higher up the catchment can have significant downstream benefits for flood mitigation, for example. So the importance of a piece of work of this nature is also recognised, albeit not a direct recommendation. In terms of combined projects, just running through those very quickly, there is definitely an emphasis here on strategic flood mitigation. In terms of, first of all, the Long Run Meadow flood water storage project, but also initiatives around Wigan Gardens, again from a water flow flood alleviation, French Weir, and but also Flypool Weir as well, with some opportunities to build in additional benefits to those proposals. And then a series of potential standalone projects. I'm not intending to go through those one by one. They are quite diverse in the areas that they look at, but it's everything from initiatives that seek to increase town centre footfall and economic activity, so for example, floating business units, but also looking at other design and placemaking aspects that are location specific. Again, these are listed in the document according to priority. Another aspect that has been included is design guidance for allocated sites within the town centre that have a close relationship with the water. And these are predominantly brownfield sites, many of which are vacant, often not with the benefit of planning permission at this point in time, but it provides significant guidance for applicants, designers, but also for the community in terms of what is expected of these developments, and will also be utilised and well considered in assessing applications. So it is intended that this document be adopted as material planning consideration. Another document as part of the outputs is a management and maintenance plan, which was developed in consultation and in collaboration with other water stakeholders such as the Environment Agency, Natural England, but also the stakeholders who invested in the canal as well, for example. But also the lead local flood authority, and starts to identify some of the significant issues, but also a management and maintenance approach for different aspects of our waterways. So the intent with this draft suite of documents is to now take it out to public consultation. And a 6-week consultation is proposed, dates between the 1st of October and the 11th of November. We're looking at the potential to link up with the Taunton Together Festival that has been organised through the Town Council on the 28th of September. We're also intending to have an exhibition of the waterways work within the town centre. We're also hosting a website questionnaire and consultation material online as well via Citizen Space, and really intended to be interactive. The work has already been considered at meetings of the Taunton Garden Town Advisory Board and also the Member Forum. And within the report, I've distilled for you some of the main feedback from those 2 meetings. But that feedback was very positive in its nature, with this work being welcomed. And so there are a series of recommendations before you this morning. I would just point out that one of those recommendations is to grant delegated authority to approve and make amendments that might be needed to finalise the consultation material. We do know there are some amendments that are needed, for example, the design of the documents to incorporate some of our corporate branding, for example. But also there are still some, some typos, etc., that need to be addressed. And finally, for clarity, whilst we're seeking delegated authority to approve and make amendments following public consultation, the ultimate proposal to adopt this document as a material planning consideration would need a return to this committee and for a further future decision. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Jenny. I know that this is a long journey with considerable amount of work on route. Before I start asking some questions, what workers and now? First of all, Councillor.
Yes, so, Councillor Vitsy Arch for advice on stay at home, and I'm trying to get the order. Thank you, Jenny, I really welcome this. It's become quite a familiar document because we've seen it at the Garden Town Board and also at the Taunton kind of member forum, and I think I can really see in your presentation the way in which you built on some of the feedback that you've got through those meetings. So thank you very much for that. That kind of the importance of flood mitigation as kind of as a priority and making it really clear that this is not currently funded, but it is to attract funding. And I'm really, really happy with the final document. I think it's actually really exciting, really, really clear. I think, we often think of the River Tone as I suppose, particularly my position around concern around flooding, see it more of a threat than as an asset, but actually it's a really valuable asset for this area and for our town. It's the heart of it, and it is underutilised. We do enjoy the town, but so much more to happen. I particularly appreciate the prioritisation of those projects in terms of deliverability, because there's a lot that could happen, but there's quite a pragmatic approach in saying, like, this is the one, going down the list, this is what's most likely to get kind of best value and to attract funding. And I really, really welcome the management and maintenance plan and bringing those stakeholders together, because I think that that's something that's been missing for a really, really long time. And for any members of the public who are listening, I'll just repeat what Jen said, that this whole project has been fully funded by the MHCLG grant. So it's not the council kind of dabbling in little imaginative fantasies. It's got a really kind of strong basis. So thank you for all your work. I know you've got really passionate on that. So
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wilkins.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely huge, this document, and it's grown, and takes in, actually saying all different aspects of the river and the catchment area. I will be interested to see how the feedback of, as different schemes, different parts of the document are implemented, how that is collated and drawn into sort of create an ongoing document, if you like, on how it is being implemented and what success we get and where the success is, and how each different part of the if you like, the document, from placement to flooding to how they affect each other as each. I think it's vital that it's all brought into one and just worry about the size and scope of it in that sense. I think it will take a lot of work to get great results and be able to explain how effective it is. I mean, clearly we can see its use directly, but, it is how it's used and then how moving forward, the work that's done is collated and brought back to the document, sorry, to the document. So I'll be interested on the governance of that. That's what's a fantastic document, like I say, we've seen it a few times, we've seen it evolve, and the work that you've done on this has been exemplary.
Councillor Redden.
Yes, I too have seen this document before and seen its iterations. I'm very pleased to see it. I think to have a strategy for the waterways in the town and around town is really important, because we have been trying in this council and the previous district to put that waterway back at the heart of Clifton, whereas often waterways and bridges, they're under the ground, they're all over the place, we can't see them. We have got this river running through our town, which could be made up for a feature. What I'm interested in too is it shows the flood defences along French Weir and that area. What I'd like to know is which of the flood defences are crucial before we can really enjoy the water, because we know the water's always going to be there. It's always going to be flowing through at greater or lesser speeds. So I think before we can really say to people, now you can enjoy this in a safe way, we need to know which of the flood things are. I think those are going to be constructed, but I don't know when or under what authority that's going to happen. So that's my first point. My second one, I'd just like to mention in memory of one of our councillors, Alan Weathercock. I was very pleased to see your slide about the waterways that run into the Tone, because he was on and on about that endlessly, about how concerned we should all be about the headwaters of the Tone coming in from particularly where the south, rather than up there in Gallington. And you'd be delighted to know that there's a map showing these parts of the plans. I just want to mention it because he did go on about it a lot, but he was very, very interested in it too. So thank you for that. But my question wasn't about that.
Jenny, can you respond?
Thank you. I think Councillor Wakefield, the range of flood protection and flood mitigation, it's somewhat complex. We know that there are multiple projects that are required, and each of those projects delivers benefits to certain areas and certain properties. So it is, I think it's a question of through particularly the more specialist colleagues that are working on those projects to build that picture, to understand which are going to maximise the benefits, the flood alleviation benefits, and you've already identified here in terms of prioritising them. I totally agree with you. It's important that we create opportunities to explore and recreation of those waterways, so that we don't just see them as a potential threat through flooding, but that is mitigated and we maximise those positive opportunities. So I think we are very much at the beginning of looking at those projects and their delivery. I think there's a lot more to come, but as we said, it really does depend on external funding in order to deliver them. And that I see as being very much the next stage of this case of funding.
Let's come back up to the funding thing. But I think when you do the consultation, and you obviously, as we said at the Garden Panel, you need to make it very clear that there isn't funding for this at the moment. But we need to make it clear somehow to the public that it's an essential part of the process. If you don't have the strategy and the desire and something worked out, you definitely won't get funding. And I think it just needs to be clear that we need to have something in place like this so that we can attract the funding, because they know we're worried about it and we're concerned about it, and we have a plan. And I think those things are important to make it clear, so that people respond as well.
Thank you, Sarah. I do share your concerns about, both, the fact that we're looking at this document in isolation to the plans around flood prevention. And I would have thought if we're going into the public domain, well, the vision is brilliant. We've got to have to give with a bit of the reality of what is the immediate concern for population. So I don't know whether a realistic, even if it's 2-3 sheets or summary of the various flood prevention schemes which are there and timescale for any of them, I think need to be considered alongside this. I think the other thing is that, my real concern is around deliverability. And, I've not seen, and I just wondered, have we got, as part of the original thinking, any thoughts as to where the funding streams will come post this initial support from the Gardens and Down project?
Thank you, councillor White. So in putting the original brief together for the consultants, we were really keen to make sure that we captured the potential funding, so external funding sources. And the document actually identifies each of the opportunities for funding. And I see that as being very targeted going forwards. As Councillor Wakefield has already said, building on the strategy and particularly the linear park concept, I think could be quite powerful documents in order to lever in those that external funding that we know is needed. We've tried to be realistic in looking at those funding sources. And it's also going to take working in partnership with other water stakeholders as well. So they will have various projects and various budgets that are also available. So it's not just us working in isolation, but I think everybody signed up to the vision set out through these documents and then working together to deliver them and to leave them out.
Okay, I recognise that and I recognise what's in the report. Have we got funding or resource within the council to help with this? Because if we're going to take at least the leadership role to sign those things, are we in a position to do that?
We have some resources within the Garden Town itself. But I also envisage working with colleagues, particularly in the Leeds Local Flood Authority side of things. They have been involved with this project so far. But I think also the consultation stage will also help to tease out more clarity around delivery and also, as you've already mentioned, some of the resources around delivery. I'm not saying that we've got everything lined up at the moment. We are very much at the beginning of all of this, but I do think we have a good basis here to go forward.
I read that within the current support from the Garden Town projects, we will have ongoing support beyond the creation of this vision.
The Garden Town team at the moment is funded, externally funded. There is a dependency on the continuation of that external funding. So that is the caveat that I will give.
And do we have a time to go for confirmation of the forward funding? I'm very aware that this document's been many years in the making, and the wider government environment is changing as is funding opportunities. So I think we may need to actually sit back and have an assessment as to whether or not what is being proposed is still relevant once we know what the government has decided that direction to travel. but that doesn't mean we should still go ahead with the consultation and everything, but I think we just need to be realistic about what is going to be available longer term.
So, Chair, I think we have got funding for the next 18 months, 2 years to fund the current level of staffing in the mortality.
Good.
From the funding that we've already received. We are just trying to secure that for the staff concerned.
Okay, that's helpful. Any further questions on this at this stage? We're being asked to support this grant. It's going to public consultation in the early autumn. It will then be amended appropriately, and at the appropriate stage will come back to this committee for final approval. Are people content with that process? Yeah. Yes, and seeing nods around the room. So what we need to do is formally take through the various recommendations in front of you all. And we'll get it out, but I'll read it out here. Right, the first one is to approve the grant. The people content with that. Secondly, to agree the delegated authorities and head of planning to consultation with the lead member for economic development planning and assets to look at the outcomes from first of all screening of the total waterway structuring guidance under the European Directive and associated environmental assessment plans, EU habitat directives, and associated conservation of habitat and species populations, together with the production and consultation on the results, the resulting reports, and make sure that they are all appropriately managed. Approve and make any changes prior to consultation, minor changes that is, and approve and make any amendments necessary following a public consultation and to finalise the documents. And I think the final one is, and it's not, I think, in the recommendations, but I think we need to just report that we expect to see the final document back here at this committee in due course. Would I have a proposer and a seconder? Bruce, opposed, Councillor Bell, seconder, Councillor Wilkins. Could I have a show of hands? Thank you. It's being carried. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. Can I add my thanks to everyone who's been involved in this and in the public consultation to come. It's great to be looking forward and not just looking at the immediacy of our financial challenges. So thank you very much indeed for that. We shall now move on to item 7, the outcome and review of the amendment plan. Equally, a project which has been under some development, and I invite Helen Vickery to present the report.
Thank you very much. I will just share my screen so we can see slides. Maybe everybody can see that as well. Thank you. Helen Bittery, I'm your Service Manager for Resources Integration, Minerals and Waste, here today to present the Mineral Plan Review, which Councillor Whitehead has been under development for a little while. I start with an apology that this hasn't been reviewed before. It was due for review in 2020, within 5 years of the plan being adopted in 2015. At that time, we didn't have the resources within the Minerals and Waste Policy team to undertake that work. And since since I came into post in 2020 and we've rebuilt the team, we've done all the background documentation to enable us to do the plan review in full, which is why it's taken a few years to get to this stage. We are, however, now content that we've undertaken the review appropriately, and that's why we're bringing it to you now. So the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, requires that all plans are reviewed at least once every 5 years and that they should be updated as necessary, or if necessary in this case. We've used the Planning Advisory Service Toolkit to undertake this review, And we've had some external peer support from a consultant who does this regularly, just to ensure, because we haven't done it before, that we are doing it appropriately, correctly, and that our conclusions are sound. So we've an obligation to review under the NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, and there have been a number of updates since we adopted our plan, or since we made and then adopted the plan. And we're currently considering this against the 2018 update, 19, my apologies. So the outcome. Whilst the NPPF has been updated multiple times, it does remain, the Somerset Minerals Plan does remain in line with the requirements of the NPPF. And I'm going to set out for you why, and hopefully address any questions, queries or concerns you have before they're raised. So we know that there's been a climate and ecological emergency declared. And we know that there's a climate emergency strategy in place, and both of those are material considerations alongside the mineral plan, but do not of themselves necessitate an update to the policies within the plan, because the policies remain compliant, and these documents are material considerations in line and alongside decision making. Similarly, with biodiversity net gain having been introduced as a national requirement, that stands alone as legislation and it doesn't necessitate an update to the mineral plan, but we do take it into consideration when we determine every application. Looking then at the outcomes. One of the things that we have looked at in great detail as part of the review of this plan are things like peat and our energy minerals, just to ensure that we are compliant and knowing that it's such a significant issue for us. We've looked at the England Peat Action Plan. We've looked at the work of the Local Nature Recovery Strategy and the team working on that. And we've been working very closely with DEFRA to look at impacts on the levels, and indeed they have funded staffing within our team for the last few years to make sure that what we're doing is compliant, and we're helping to influence nationally the work of the peat strategies that DEFRA are doing. We also work alongside, just so that we're clear, the Severn Estuary Partnership, the Marine Management Organisation, the Coastal Work, and other bodies, just to make sure that where we have those overlaps, we are working together and we are consistent. So, looking then to the next slide, the mineral plan requires that we have land banks in the same way that the local plan requires the 5-year housing land supply. We have a requirement for crushed rock, and in our plan specifically, Silurian andesite, for 15 years, and that we have a 7-year requirement for sand and gravel. And I think it's important to be clear that the Summit Mineral Plan 15-year requirement for the crushed rock is in excess of the NPPF 10-year requirement, because it recognises the national significance of the stone extracted from Somerset. With doing the plan review, one of the things we've looked at very closely is the ability for us to maintain the adopted land bank, because that is what our policy position requires that we have. For crushed rock, we have land bank maintained to 2030, but for Silurian andesite, which is actually extracted from the Moonshill quarry shown on the slide, we are below the 15 years that we require. However, we're not looking at needing an update to the plan at the moment because there is a live planning application in, and if that is deemed and determined successfully, that will push us over the 15-year land bank. If that is not determined successfully, we will need to look at the review, an early review of the plan again. But that's one of the things in the recommendation that we bring to you in a minute. With regard to sand and gravel, we don't have much in the way of live extraction of sand and gravel in Somerset. So we do rely on a memorandum of understanding with Devon and Cornwall so that we can maintain our land bank. In essence, we share the resources that they have so that we hit our targets. So whilst I've done a very quick romp through, I'm more than happy to come back on anything that we need to. The recommendations that we're putting before you are set out in full on pages 375 and 376 of your report, but I've just pulled out some key highlights, as it were. We will continue to monitor the crushed rock, the slurry and andesite, and the sand and gravel land banks through the local aggregate assessment, which is a document we produce annually, looking at the output levels. We will continue to monitor changes to national policy, including on peat and energy minerals, which may trigger an early plan review. We will maintain a watching brief on proposed changes to plan making. We know there's a lot going on at the moment. And we will review the memorandum of understanding for the sand and gravel with Devon and Cornwall and ensure that we maintain that land bank position so that we're policy compliant. Sorry, very quick romp through, but like you said, it's been a while in the making.
Yes, and thank you very much indeed. Some questions, maybe?
Thank you, Helen. First of all, really pleased that the council's working with DEFRA around peaks. It's not just about energy extraction, it's also like supporting those commercial rural businesses that are kind of involved in that, so that they're not left high and dry. Really basic question. I don't know what Silurian andesite is used for, not having done geology.
Yes, sorry.
At A level. And my other question is, you know, we may well get some national policy changes on a number of issues. Can we make minor amendments to the document in the light of that, or do we have to do a full review?
It depends. Okay, I'll start with the first question.
Yeah.
Silurian andesite is what we call a high PSB. It's a high skid resistance stone that's used in road construction. It's not as common as a lot of other stones, which is why it is incredibly important. It goes a long way to ensuring that our road construction is appropriate as opposed to normal other crushed rock, which can be used for a multitude of things. That's the first one. It depends with regard to the policy question, how we receive the policy changes and what. So it's, if we need to update the plan, we can do an update. What we have here is a mineral plan. We also have teams working on the local plan that is required for Somerset, and the two need to work together and complement each other. So if it's not a change that's specific to the mineral plan, it's, we could capture, we could add some through the local plan, because all of the development plan documents need to be read together. So depending on what it is and what the change is, will dictate whether it can go into the local plan, whether it can be read in isolation as a standalone piece of either legislation or policy, or whether it would necessitate an update to the mineral plan. Hopefully that's clear. Alison, did you want to add anything that way?
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins, and then Councillor Cole. Did I see your hand then?
Sorry, I think the question's been asked.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, I was just curious to understand a bit more about the key topic bit out.
Councillor Wilkins.
Yeah, I just go more in depth about, you were saying, to do with changes in national policy, well, certain amounts of, hokey cokey that's being played, especially with BFT, projects. How reactive are we? Do we sort of, you know, for instance, the Stonehenge Tunnel, which I'm sure have an impact on our general side of things. And it's gone in, and it's come out, it's gone in again, it's come out. How does that affect our thinking? And does it have a deep impact on our business? And that's one scheme, but there's other large scale schemes that equally seem to be off and on, shall we say, at different sides, I think.
Yeah. So it doesn't impact the policy. The policy requires that we have the land bank in place. What it would do is impact the sales and the outputs from the quarries where the stone is sourced for those projects. But they will have caps on their extraction. And when we grant the planning consent, there's an output per annum cap that goes on to those different sites. If they want to look at changing those to meet demand, then we'll have to revisit the planning applications through the strategic planning committee. But in terms of the supply of stone, that's largely a commercial quarry decision, or market supply and demand and cost are things that are outside of the plan making process.
Councillor Winkle, and Councillor Fox.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, this is new to me, I don't know much about minerals. That's really, they don't have many down here in this part of Somerset, I don't think, that we extract. So I'm just interested in the whole thing, why we're doing this. You have a 15-year plan because the people who withdraw the aggregates need to know that they're going to be able to do it and plan their business. And is it a national thing that we have to have so much aggregate available? Because yes, I'm sure it is, I'm nodding, but it just occurred to me, I just don't really know why we have to do this, because I mean, you know, the people who live up there, near it, it's not very nice. I mean, you know,
So
the lorries going past, the big hole in the ground.
There are quarries all over Somerset, and the mineral plan is not just about the stone extraction. It covers the peat, it covers the energy minerals, it covers all various different minerals. The National Planning Policy Framework requires that we have the land bank in place for an element of time that makes sure there is enough aggregate there nationally. So it's not that we are saying we have to have a supply. Nationally, we're told we have to. What Somerset did in adopting the mineral plan was actually put a higher land bank than the national requirement required at that time, because of the importance of Somerset stone and to make sure that that part of our economy continue. And it's a huge employer and it has massive benefits. I know some of the neighbours find it an unfriendly neighbour. We know there are impacts around things like heavy goods vehicles and traffic. I probably should have said we are working very closely with our transport colleagues who are working with the local transport plan, just to make sure that all of this feeds into the development of that as well, so that they are dovetailed, because they're all part of what we look at when we're doing our determination of planning applications.
Yeah, so we have to have some kind of, because that's the national policy and MPF says we have to have some kind of plan. But we also know that it's important for our economy, and it's kind of nationally important that we have that type of stone, particularly available going all over the country. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't. Yeah.
That's fine. I'm more than happy to sit and talk in detail if you.
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to go a little bit further than we have with the horizon scanning and the state of play. We have actually significant infrastructure and resource, and we have to conform to the DPN. Now, this is also backed up by the fact that I think it was 1943, a 99-year automatic lease was given to all the quarries in the UK so that they could extract for 99 years. And this came to a head in a recent quarry application where a lot of the locals did not understand that it was a nationally significant resource, and that there was a 99-year lease which runs out in 42. 2042, which is why I thought it came in 2023, but could be wrong. My concerns are that most of the objections were around continuing to remove stones from quarries that were in existence and have this 1998 place.
Mhm.
There was a great lack of understanding from the public where we were and why we were there. And you got some question about why, because of the MVP and the national resource. It was a difficult meeting because people don't want to, if they're not hearing what they want to hear, they sometimes get quite upset. And I spoke to a couple of people afterwards and explained that there's a 99-year lease that goes out in 2042. And the reaction was, well, we'll never let that happen. So, you need to understand that this particular type of stone is incredibly important for the economy of the UK, let alone Somerset.
Yeah.
And they have a license to do this up until. The only thing that seemed to calm the area was maximising the amount that was going out on road freight rather than road freight. But again, there were limits on that. There's a limit on carbon. I think it was 4 million. 4 million. I don't know whether that is something that we might look at to try and get the locals to understand that we are, the capacity with the rail freight. I don't know whether there's any room for this. I mean, it's important stuff locally. If you're on that, I don't represent the hand division, but I know the strength of feeling that you've shown at our meeting, and you need to be, forgive me, a little smarter.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, no, there's some valid points there. So 2042 as an end date was set by government in, I think it was the 60s, so it wasn't quite 99 years, but it was set as an end date for any quarries that didn't have an end date on their existing consents. So if they were granted permission and it didn't specify otherwise, 2042 is the end of their consent. There are some quarries that have been granted more recently that do have shorter or longer end dates. And when we look through strategic committee at new applications, we can look at extending those. The reason the last committee had to stick with 2042 on the consideration that we had before us, which was West Down, is because it was a review of an existing permission to update conditions and an extension of an existing. So it had to stick to the 2042. Had they come in with a fresh application, we could have looked at pushing it beyond that. So the 2042 is something that's in our minds, because when we get to a point all our quarries end in 2042, they don't all end then, but those that have that, we've got quite a lot of work coming our way. And the Mineral Products Association, which is a national body, is looking at this with a group of mineral planning authorities at the moment. And we're engaged in that dialogue as well. With regard to how we engage with locals, our team, my team, regularly attend the quarry liaison meetings, and they are set up by the quarries and the extractors, the producers, and they engage with all of the local communities who are willing to engage. So we have, so we do have a presence at those meetings. They are largely quarterly. Unfortunately, they all tend to fall over the same 2-week period for all of our vendor quarries, which means we've got a lot of evening meetings for us at those times. But just to offer you reassurance, we do attend those regularly, and we work really closely with our quarry companies and our producers, and actually we've got a very good working relationship with them.
Thank you. Are we working with the quarries that do end prior to 2042 and those that end in 42?
Yes.
Because what I can envisage in my terrible nightmare is that they all come in 2041 saying they want to extend.
Yeah, that's not just your nightmare.
Absolutely. absolutely must not happen. But I think fairly obvious reason.
Yeah, no, we are actively engaged with all of our quarry operators. And I have to say, we're building stronger and stronger relationships with them through the policy team, through the development management team, and through our enforcement and monitoring team, because we've got statutory obligation to monitor these consents, and we do regular, if not annually, then more frequent visits. And they welcome us because it's in their interest.
But your name, which is geologist working for the big problem. And it's been banging my ears.
I'll just ask a couple of questions on this. First of all, I'm the only local, but I'm not local within yards of the quarries. And hence we're not invited to the quarry liaison meetings or anything like that, because the impact of quarries is huge. It's a national impact. It has a huge contribution to the wider economy of Somerset as well as beyond. And we need to recognise that East Midlands is providing that role. Secondly, the outputs, when you've got railheads, and we have 2 railheads, so that's great news because it takes the pressure not off the immediate villages and locals, but actually wider afield. However, it still is making a huge impact. I think that there is a huge legacy of the regulation committee, which behaviours in the past have not been very sympathetic, let's say, to the locals in the northern part of the county. Secondly, I think that there has been a singular failure between relating what happens at the quarries and to transport policy. So I'm delighted that we will be seeing here, and I hope we will see real dovetailing between the 2 policies. And this is all part of the local plan as well. And so when people say that nothing's happening with the local plan, well, there's an awful lot going on, including evidence collection and all the other things which need to be done, as well as these 2 particular important policies, minerals and waste and transport. So I would just think for the record, we need to recognise that it's a much bigger picture than what necessarily somebody who's been in a district council would see, because the county had a role with local plans as well, and it was never really married, and we're trying really hard to marry them a bit more, because those 2 policies are really important. And finally, and this is an interesting one, if you've got a quarry which is no longer extracting and you have an enforcement issue, so you go back to the minerals and waste enforcement team? No, you've got to go to enforcement and planning. And planning will say nothing to do with us, go over to minerals. So there are some gaps in the way we handle issues about redundant quarries, because some of them are really key for wildlife, really key for other things like that. So I just think we just need to make sure that when we look at the policies in and around the local plan, we make very clear statements about what is, sorry. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, I am guilty. My apologies. Okay, switched on. So I think while I commend the effort of what's going on with this particular policy, and I'm delighted that you're working with others, I think we need to recognise the various elements, and we also need to recognise that there is a wider local plan, and we've got to get it right this time. One, we must then take the benefits of being a unitary authority and actually join up the various local plan activities, including the minerals one. So I welcome that work. Right, is there any other questions? Helen, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say, we should go back to, we do need the committee to agree that they will accept and endorse the recommendation.
So we're going to get that.
Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. There's a lot of recommendations, and we just need to go through them all. They're in your report on pages, 375, 376. And, there's lots of them. We'll just go through them very quickly. One is the contents of the report and the jobs of conclusion. But there's no update needed on the mineral plan, Somerset mineral plan, and then to agree a number of actions. Publishing the outcome of the plan review and inform the industry. Update the LDS to reflect the amended timescale for the SMP Somerset Minerals Plan review in 2029, and this an early review is triggered by the monitoring process. Through the local aggregates assessment process, continue to monitor the outcome of pending applications at a number of quarries. You can see in front of you, I'm not going to read them all out. Additionally, monitor any further applications that are submitted which could provide additional reserves, including the Watley Quarry proposals, and including the land bank model required. Use the Mineral and Waste Planning Authority monitoring report process to monitor supply, as we do already. Continue to monitor any changes to national policy, including clean and energy minerals. That is going to be an ongoing thing, and if necessary, it may trigger another plan review. Maintain a watching brief on the proposed changes to plan making process through planning reform. That's going to be an interesting one. Review the sand and gravel memorandum of understanding with Devon County Council and former council, and continue engagement with Devon and County Council on any forthcoming applications. Work with area planning teams to raise awareness and understanding of the minerals policy and how these policies are relevant to planning applications considered by the planning teams, e.g. safeguarding mineral areas. Update the various mapping layers and text on the website, including the licenses and the tolling authority, etc. And I would actually add, if I may, one additional recommendation, and that is to work closely with the transport colleagues to mitigate the impact of quarry traffic on the roads of Somerset. I hope people appreciate that. It's something I really want to formalise to actually reinforce we're now one authority.
It's absolutely welcome your addition, and I strongly would be worthwhile including the rail heads in that. This is transport.
So the railheads will be included in the LTP work, local transport plan. It's not just.
Just want to make sure it's in.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
No. Okay, people can tempt with the recommendations, including the amendments. Yep. Yeah. Okay, I have a proposal and a seconder.
Just confused though, so action means that as an option, great. Seems a bit woody, is that?
I think that is around the fact that we don't know what the government are going to do in terms of plan making. The intention, I think, is to bring forward the levy and regeneration proposals to change the plan making process, and obviously that may have an influence on the timeline for any review of this. Maintain a watching brief on proposed changes to plan making process planning approval. What I would say is we will make necessary changes, for example.
And our changes then brought back to us. I don't really understand.
We will be bringing a briefing paper to members on what is in the draft NPPA in any event. It doesn't really much about plan making at the moment, other than the intention to bring forward the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act. That would be subject to the regulations, Brennan's regulations around legal custody for the members of the implications of those on plan making applicants.
So when you say maintain a watching brief, do you mean make any necessary changes as a result of, or just keep an eye on.
Just understand whether or not the changes require us to take forward either an earlier review or a different way of.
In which case we have to come back.
Yeah,
Because what Helen was saying in answer to my question was it would depend on the nature of the changes as to whether that kind of, you know, goes to review or whether we could just.
Process.
Yeah.
Because some of it, I think Helen was making, sorry, was that some of the changes will actually go into our other documents, which will be read alongside.
Yeah.
A plan A minimum planning application. So that's why having this now really working together with the other policies of the local plan, which I'm afraid hasn't been the case in the past, is really important. Sorry, Helen.
If it's easier, we can take it out because that is almost BAU.
Yeah.
It's almost what we do on a regular basis.
The same.
I would just suggest, yeah.
So with the removal of that statement about the watching brief and the additional one about working specifically with the transport policy around the impact on the roads. Are people content? I have a proposer, a seconder, proposers, councillor Wilkins, seconder, and councillor Rayfield. People happy to?
Have to wait for another.
I think she's stepping in for.
No, it's only 4
No,
members.
didn't amendment.
Okay.
So it had to be.
So she lost it up.
So it needs to be me to separate.
Okay, yeah, okay, my apologies there. Delighted to contribute later. Great values. That's fun. Okay,
Please do, Simon.
so, on that basis, would somebody second it? Councillor Dart and Hans, please. Thank you. Right, on that basis, I believe, we have just one final thing, which is the forward plan. And, I don't know, I mean, if you want to add anything.
I think the board can only go as far as the 8th of October meeting. Clearly, we will need to have in the waterways. So we should be in the meeting, in the first meeting in the new year. But we've got at the moment lined up the coach label plan, but we're still obviously waiting to see whether or not we get the inspector's report on that. And likewise, the Ilminster label plan, that may need to slip again. The Norton Philip label plan, again, we're waiting for the examination results.
Okay,
So we're just, those are the
25, should those last two dates be June 25?
still spending priorities report is coming to, the, October meeting. Otherwise, the local and 6 monthly, okay, sorry, that's that meeting. And local transport plan concern, which is that meeting at the moment.
okay, so we'll have a local plan update meeting.
That's the local plan update, and people should come into that meeting.
Mhm. Yeah. Right,
See those.
we need to understand exactly where we've got to with evidence collection and all the other things related to the local plan. And I know there's a lot of work ongoing, but not particularly visible to the members, and we need to get that into the public. Sorry, Councillor Rickon.
Yeah, I wanted to ask two other things which I'm interested in. I don't know if this is the right forum to talk about. First of all, I'd like some kind of an update on section 106 monies, because we had a real problem in Somerset Western Taunton about them running out of time and people not knowing they were running out of time to spend. And I don't want them to be lost if they're not to spend. I don't know what process is in place at the moment. So I'm going to ask whether we do an update for the committee, but that might not be the right place to do it. We really need people to know locally when their section will set up. So that might be something that's already happening. My second one is I would like some kind of report about the adoption of estate roads and facilities. I've got several estates in my ward where the roads have not been adopted 10, 15 years after the estate was finished. And we need to know what we're doing about that, because thing that annoys a lot of people who live on the fence, and they ask me about it, and if you could have some kind of idea of what's happening or isn't happening about the adoption, that would be really helpful. And again, I don't know whether it's this committee or not, only this transport.
I appreciate it, Councillor. I think we need to. It wouldn't necessarily come under terms of reference again, but it doesn't mean we can't. Okay,
So you take them all the way, Richard. And just to come back to section 106, we have to produce as an authority annually an infrastructure planning statement that sets out exactly how much money has been collected, where it's been spent, and also the documents. Not just for section 106, but circulated as well. So it shows that how much is paid with 25%, 50% transfers to pensions and finance, which is paid. So those were published for the last financial year. Obviously, we're in preparation. Yes, now the requirements level is finished by the end of the year, so we are those are
Paris has to get notified themselves, so they should know. So if they ask for it, actually say that you should know.
and regularly still payments are made to the parishes. I think.
Yes, I think I knew that was happening. It's more than money that are unspent and going to interfere with it.
We are keeping a careful eye on that. Certainly in the former west area, that is completely up to date. Records in some parts of the area are still being put to date.
And I suggest we take this up offline. You've got a specific concern first, and you'll transfer the request regarding the state roads, which are an issue across the county, and then it's a complex one. Perhaps, I will say what will come back and take it up in some way, whether it's here or in some other form. I can't leave that with you.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Anything else on the forward plan at this stage? No, great. Thank you very much indeed. I'm very happy to close the meeting.